and they just get to spread information.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's ever been like this before, where people could just share stories and share knowledge in that kind of way. And then I think it's if people are having that natural conversation, it's like cool for people to listen to.
Yeah.
So I think the really cool thing about it is just sharing knowledge, sharing information,
Mm.
and yeah,
I know you started. You didn't start, but like you did an episode a long time ago, right? With
yeah,
your cousin. How was that
yeah,
experience? Like,
yeah. Me and my cousin, we had this conversation too of doing one for ourselves too, and we still do it.
yeah.
Actually, we're still doing our own little thing, but it's gotten very like soccer focused.
Oh, okay, okay, that's
So we'll
good.
talk about like the EPL and the Premier League and all that. But yeah, with him, it was just mostly just with like old time stories, like things like that. So with that, it just different, right?
Yeah,
But again, like I think having these things where this is what people are doing now, it's kind of becoming a thing where everyone's doing it.
yeah,
So it's
and
cool to see.
that's why like that's been my main concern, right? Like everybody's doing it. In fact, like I'd probably say it's for credibility, but I've been wanting to do this for like 2 3 years. Remember we've talked
Yeah,
about this for a
yeah,
while, right before it even got popular. But now that I did it, like I see everybody doing it, and I'm like, hey, what is gonna make us stand out? And kind of what you're saying is like basically to choose a niche,
mm-hmm.
right? Like you kind of niched up. You're choosing sports, soccer, and for this, like I have been trying to find that balance, right? And that balance is like trying to show people, the audience, like how to come out of chaos, right? Like transcend chaos, and that's something me and you have talked about
Yeah.
extensively, right? So like just a little background, like where do we meet? Like where, just if you want to tell the story, I think you remember better than me. Where do we meet?
Where did we meet?
Not when, because that's like imagine knowing the exact date, but like obviously in
Oh,
middle
okay.
school, right?
Okay, like
Yeah,
background type
yeah,
of
yeah,
story.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it was probably sometime in grade 7 or grade 8.
yeah.
Um,
Great. What it was. The World Cup was 2006. I think I met you like a year
2006.
before
Yeah.
that World Cup, 2005 maybe.
Yeah. I just have this
So
memory
it's,
of me, you, and another guy named Josh.
hmm.
We were all in band class together. That's what I remember.
Yo, that's what you remember, eh?
Yeah, and I remember
Yeah.
you would be a couple of rows behind me playing. I don't know what you guys played, but it looked
Trumpet.
way more fun than the freaking clarinet.
You were the clarinet.
Yeah, and I was jealous of that. I was like, oh man, I wish
Oh, that's
I
the
was back
softest
there.
one out of all the instruments.
I
Yeah.
know, I know that one.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my god, I
That
actually
one and the
didn't remember.
flute.
The flute's pretty bad.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. R.I.P. all the flute players.
yeah.
But no. I remember you from like soccer. I didn't remember that we had band class together. That's crazy.
Yeah, we had, but that's like if I connect you to the earliest memories,
Yeah.
I think band class immediately, and then I also think of the other class that we had, which was
Shop.
shop.
Yeah.
We had the homeroom together.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we never did our homework
Never.
ever.
Like a bunch of rebels.
Yeah,
No, and that's the thing. Like the importance of why I'm trying to like kind of bring this to memory is like, like I don't know if kids, especially with the pandemic, like how kids are doing it nowadays, right? Do you think it's like the same environment? Like with us, yeah, where you lived, how like it was like a 20-minute walk from the school. I remember after school, like it would be so fun, especially like in the summer. We would all be joking, walking down the street. The thing is, I would want to chill with you guys so much that my house was in the opposite direction, and I would walk
yeah,
20
it
minutes
was.
to your house and take the bus that was in front of your stop
Yeah,
and that bus would take me to the station. So it would be like a almost like an hour detour,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Just to
yeah,
chill
yeah.
with you guys. Like it was so fun doing those walks. I don't think kids have that. Like my brother and sister, they don't do like they don't tell me stories like that.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I've been trying to actually keep an eye out on the younger generation a little bit, and it seems like they're just all caught up in the digital stuff. Like we
Yeah,
would leave our house. Like I remember summer times, you'd leave 9 in the morning. You'd grab your scooter with a ball, whatever like that
yeah,
choice was that day. You'd go with football, baseball, whatever,
yeah,
and then you'd come home when the sun was going down.
yeah.
So
No, they don't. They don't have that anymore. It's not to bash them, right? Because I think that topic has been talked about extensively. Like their issues are something else. Like my brother, all his friends are online, right? So, but he does have better communication skills than I had at that age because they're always like talking and being
Talking,
like,
right?
yeah, like the guy over there and the guy over here. You know, they're always like communicating. Versus us, we're just like kicking the ball around, shooting like hoops or whatever, right? Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would
that's a
say
good
like
point, actually. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause I mean, I sound like an old guy when I bash this like young guys. Like even though it is annoying.
It's just natural, man. You got to do it.
Yeah, it's like you're jealous or something. But no, it's interesting because for those of you who don't know, like you weren't born here, right? You're from
Hmm.
Iran, right?
Hmm.
So you had in a way, what age did you come here again?
10 years old.
10.
Yeah.
So from like I was born here, right? So from 0 to 10, we have different stories. I think our story is kind of obviously after high school. Then we went our separate ways, but we had a similar story during those years. But when I met you, we were like different people. I remember you, man, like with your haircut, like the super fob,
Super fob.
like the
Super fob.
bowl, like a bowl. You know, like when
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah, yeah. I had the bowl. I had the splits
oh
right down the
my,
middle.
the little Moses part in the
Yeah, yeah.
sea.
The Moses. I had that. I had it all, man.
To let my people go and
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I that's how I remember you, man. Like I remember it's like it was like a white shirt, long sleeve in the summer. I'm like, what is this guy?
Yeah.
And I loved it, man. You were like, you still are, but like when I met you, like very quiet, very humble and stuff, and it's such a good memory, right? But like, how was it for you when you came here? Because I
Uh,
think I met you. I didn't obviously. I met you when what we were like 13,
yeah,
14.
yeah,
So I didn't meet you immediately, right? So how was it like your transition?
yeah. The immediate experience, I think. Luckily, I was young enough that when I came here, it went straight into ESL class, and then with those guys' help, you almost like start to lose the accent immediately.
Yeah.
And somebody actually told me what the actual reason is. I always thought it was a brain thing, or it was a brain development type of thing. But if I'm not mistaken, my client was telling me that it's a voice box thing. So apparently, up to 12, when your voice box isn't developed, you
Yeah.
can lose the accent. Once the voice
What?
box is developed, then the accents tend to stick. And I just heard that yesterday.
That's
So,
crazy. That's
yeah.
actually I gotta look into that.
And I always thought it was like a brain or language part of the brain kind of
Yeah.
development. And apparently it's not. Let's
Because
trust her, I guess.
I actually noticed that. Like I didn't think it was a voice box, but it is similar. Because my theory was that there's like a certain age. For me, it was like after 11 or 12, like you have that accent. Like even if you like, you
Yeah.
can't lose it.
Yeah.
So from what my experience, like from who the people that we know, anybody that came before 11, 12
Yeah.
ish, they don't have an accent.
Exactly.
Right. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the age where the voice box like
Yeah.
develops. That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But like, how's your experience? Like, cause what 10 years of growing up in Iran is still like
Yeah.
it's a long time, right? So how was it there? Like,
Yeah, so
how's
back
Iran?
there, back there, like I remember a funny story was when I first came here, and I think a lot of other immigrant Iranians would be able to relate. Over there, when we go to school, it's all based around fighting people and then becoming best friends with them. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's how we made friends over there. And I remember I came here, and in the playground, I was trying to fight every kid. And that was my way of,
yeah,
because that's all that I knew. It's like,
yeah,
okay, I don't have any friends right now. What do I have to do? Oh, okay, I got to scrap, and then they'll become my best friends.
yeah, yeah.
Because it was like a respect thing or whatever. And then the ESL actually teacher and one of the guys, they told me like, hey man, you can't do that. It doesn't work like that here. You have to
Yeah.
be friendly. You have to like
Communicate.
yeah, you have to communicate.
Yeah.
You have to do these things.
Oh my.
So yeah, I got pulled into the office a couple of times, and they told me like, no, like you have to be nice.
So like, how
that's
would you do that? Though? You just like just try to like
Yeah,
scrap
and,
someone.
and
Like, how
I,
does that
I
work?
think in our friend group, I've told the story a bunch of times, but I went to our other Persian buddy and I asked him, I'm like, how do I tell me the worst swear words you know for English?
Yeah.
And he's like a super polite kid. He's like, call them dumbass. And I was like, oh wow, like I felt hype with
Yeah,
dumbass, you know, like
yeah.
it had a lot of weight. And so I was running around the playground calling all these kids dumbasses, and no one would fight me. And I was getting cheesed. It was like, what? Like, isn't that supposed to be, like
Triggering,
a
yeah.
deep level? But it wasn't. So that was my first few months, and then I started to just kind of use sports to
Mm.
make friends.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
I was pretty like decent at just a bunch of different sports.
Yeah.
I'd pick them up fairly easy, and so I'd use that to make friends. And I couldn't speak at that point.
Yeah.
But once it hit like the 6 month point or the 1 year point, I think you go smooth sailing from there.
Like, how would you describe like the difference between, I guess, the Persian culture, as in like making friends, apart from like the beefing? I'm saying like, I'm saying like, how is it dynamic? That's I think that's what I'm asking. Like, is there a big difference in dynamics? Like when you become this, you say you would scrap and then become friends. How is that friendship? Was it like, was it a stronger bond because you guys fought, or?
Yeah, I think, and I don't know. This might be inaccurate or it might be right, but I think when you were asking me that, the thing that came up was that back in Iran, it felt a lot like you were. It was like a tribe almost. Like you had
Mm,
your boys or whatever, like your group of people, and like you guys were like a small tribe, and it was you guys versus the world.
that's
Whereas
sick.
when I came here, everybody kind of got along.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe that's a difference in
That's
dynamics.
interesting, actually.
Yeah.
It's that changes the whole dynamic of like how you grow up and everything, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
guess.
Especially like obviously back home, there's only one sort of people, right? And here you have like Persians, Hispanics, like
Yeah.
that. Well, how was that for you? Was that like weird, like to see different?
Yeah,
I've
it
always
was.
wondered that because for me, I grew up here, right? So I'm
Yeah.
so used to like I grew up in an Italian neighborhood. I went to a public school, like every nationality. How is it like growing up with just your own nationality?
Yeah. I think here or
Like what, like the difference, I guess. Like, is it weird, like coming here and seeing like so many different people get along and be friends? Like,
I think it was refreshing. I think after the first little bit, I'd learned quickly that like that's just it. The way that it works here is different,
yeah,
which is like being more friendly, like
yeah,
being
yeah, yeah,
cool with people, like warm with people. But back home, it was like kind of tribal like that, where
yeah.
like whoever wasn't your friend, you were almost enemies.
True,
So
true.
like those are the kind of like memories that I have
Yeah,
from back home. But again, we were like 8 years old, 7 years old, like
yeah,
whatever, right? So it could have been these type of things.
yeah. And it's so interesting because like, you're like obviously we have our other friend Thomas, and I know we all of our other friends, but you're like it's so interesting to have a friend that like you guys grew up together. I know maybe a lot of listeners like have that. I know people that like they have a bunch of friends that they grew up with. Me, I used to move around a lot. And I always like have different activities that I do, so I always end up making new friends, right? And then like the old ones, they just move on, whatever. But with you, it's been like we grew up together, and
Yeah,
I don't
literally.
think people understand the what do you call it, the impact of that. It's like a brother, right? It's like
Yeah.
you guys saw each other, like you guys seen everything, and I feel like that's so unique. Maybe people like underestimate it or like they don't appreciate it.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, it's been my boy for like whatever, but to like see someone change and grow up and literally grow and
Yeah.
graduate and like succeed, that's so like unique to me. It's such a unique experience, right? Which
Yeah.
is for me, I saw those changes in you, right? Like I saw you go from like the bowl haircut to like the spiky haircut, and like you turn into like a Gino.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is we had those phases of
Yeah,
going
those
through like
phases.
I think with our generation it might have been a musical thing
True.
cuz through your teenage years you had like okay, we were listening to much music and then you would like listen to punk rock
Yeah.
and therefore that meant that you had to dress punk rock or suddenly you and your boys are listening to rap. Now you had to dress up rap and
G Unit.
gangster and the G Unit, and we had, if you want to get into it, you should say all the things that we used to dress up, like all the
Oh, let's
brands
do
and
it.
and and
I want to
all of
clip
that.
this. I want to clip this, and we have pictures, right, of
Yeah, yeah,
us. Like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
okay. The first wait, what came first? Was it the preppy, the Hollister, or was it the G Unit? No, the G Unit
No,
was
it was the
first, right?
gangster stuff.
Yeah, how we used to wear like double X. Okay, so for those listening, I want you to imagine this. Like, if you're listening on Spotify, try to go on YouTube, look at Sam, and picture him with a
And look at
black
you.
tee, black tee. Right? What size were you actually back then? Like a small?
I was
medium?
probably an extra small.
Okay, right. Okay, so Sam would wear. He's an extra small. He would wear a XL black tee
Yeah.
with white Dickies and white shoes.
13-year-old kid.
And wait, did you have a gold chain?
Gold chain.
Oh my, yeah, yeah. And me, I was what, like a large. I would wear like 2XL, sweater in the summer. Friggin', I would tuck my sock in my shoe,
Yeah.
or is it vice versa? I would tuck my no, I tuck my in my pants in my sock, and I would wear like a bandana for some reason sometimes.
Oh yeah, that was your thing.
What's wrong with us? Like,
You had the academics look happening with the Air Forces. That's what I remember
the
about you.
most graffiti or the most graphic design that the t-shirt had was like the better, right?
Yeah.
And that was a crazy time because I remember my mom would always be like, "What are you
trying to achieve
What are you
here?"
trying to hide?"
Yeah.
And now I understand that was a culture, right? Like usually when you wear baggy clothes because you're like out there robbing, right? But for me, I actually had this one of my notes. I need to bring it up, man. I always ripped on you guys for this, and it's the glow sticking phase.
Oh,
I
yeah.
forgot about that. No, here's I remember it because I seen my friend. She showing me skipping videos, and apparently, like like you skip, it's cool exercise, right? But now, like they're doing moves, and they sell skipping ropes that glow in the dark. And this girl's like with one arm, like a lasso, and it glows in the dark. And I had a flashback to you guys glow sticking at the
days,
at lunch break at the back of the school because that was
Yeah.
popular back then, right? Like glow sticking and stuff.
Yeah, that was a club thing.
Yeah,
I
it was a
think
club
The
thing,
way
yeah.
it had started was, you'd pop the glow stick and then you'd tie it at the end of a shoe,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then you just spin it, do tricks with it. That was our thing, and you rightly chose to stay out of
Oh
that.
man, I gotta tell you one memory I had of that. Like, I was so embarrassed. Like, I was coming back from lunch, but I ended up like I went to lunch, but then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go home. I was like such a rebel. So like I took the bus back. As the bus was passing the school, I see like I look, it's passing the school. I look at the all the way at the back. I see you and Mike just glow sticking.
Oh, at the same time.
At the same time, you guys were just
Oh.
glow sticking. I'm like, I'm in the bus. I'm like, oh,
Those are my
my.
boys. Get him out of there.
Oh my god.
There's actually a video on YouTube of Mike glow sticking in the same spot, and it's on YouTube. It's got
at York Mills.
at York Mills. And do you remember Chanel?
yeah, Chanel.
Yeah, Chanel, Thomas, and Mike glow sticking behind.
They were
the
all
school.
glow sticking.
Mike was. They were just
Oh,
chirping.
they were just
out.
there.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know how many people like listening
Yeah,
like
we're
that.
exposing deep stuff right now.
Yeah, but it was embarrassing for me. I was like, not because it was like a bad thing, just because like literally looked like just jumping rope.
Yeah.
almost,
Yeah,
you know. But that's why I had a flashback because my friend she's learning how to do like moves, and then she showed me a video, and this girl has a like a glow stick, like the skipping rope is a glow stick, and I'm like, what? Why? Like, what? What's the point of this?
Yeah.
But what was the point of that? Like, what was
Well,
the fad?
the
Like, why
point
was
of
it so
us-
cool?
Practicing at school was to prepare for the nightclub event on the weekend, which
Yeah.
would happen with the all ages in Toronto. Like it would happen
Yeah.
once every month,
Yeah,
and it was those famous companies, and they'd have events. And so when you would go to those events, it's just like 500, 600 people
yeah,
and blasting music, and you'd make a giant circle. You'd go in the middle and then start chanting, and then people would open up the circle for you. And when they opened it up, it meant now you can go.
yeah.
So
yeah.
then you would start, and like it was
Okay.
like a whole like hype thing.
yeah.
And then you'd take turns. You'd like you'd yeah, literally.
I never went to those with you guys, so I was like, I had no clue why. But now I
Yeah, you
understand.
actually never did.
Now-
yeah.
now I
so
understand.
that's why, because you do that, and it was all
Oh,
like you're
but imagine the
teenagers, right?
attention, people
Exactly,
looking,
you're
doing
all-
moves and stuff.
Exactly. It was all I think a huge attention piece for us
Yeah.
back then. And like you would notice after you would do your turn and glow stick, you'd come out, all the girls would kind of just be like around
This
and they'd
guy's
be
cool.
like looking at they'd like think you're famous or whatever.
Oh
that was the
man,
deal,
that
man.
was the girls for the curls for the girls back then,
Yeah,
I guess.
exactly.
Oh man, but so going like off of that, uh, it might be like a little deep, but it's something it does impact like something about you that I've learned. Like I don't know if you've noticed, but I like to give you a lot of credit. Like a lot of stuff that have done in my life, I've always thought about you. Like you're not there saying like, "Yo, take this advice." You just tell me stuff, and sometimes like I'll take that tidbit and use it in my life, right? And there's something that you told me. I don't know if you remember. You told me one time that you wanted to be unique. You know that like let's say everybody was buying kind of the goose. You're like, I don't. I want to. You got like a moose
Mm.
knuckle, right? And I always admired that, like that you wanted to like, and you weren't actively trying to be different. Like you weren't like purposely doing things extravagant to be different, but that was your way of standing out, right? And I admire that a lot because I've always tried to do that myself, right? So like my question is, where does that come from? You know,
Yeah,
what was your need for that, like, or was it just something you just wanted to do?
I don't know. That's a good question, and I think it's for sure complex. I don't think there's an answer to that. I think a big part of it throughout those years,
Yeah,
because I notice now I don't really want
yeah,
that. But I think through those years, especially in the teenage years, it had to have been some kind of like attention thing, where you want to be different or
yeah.
you want to be like you want to stand out, you want to be unique. But also a lot of it, I think, came from my mom, who since I was a kid, she'd always say she was like huge into astrology,
Okay.
so she'd say like, "Oh, you're a Leo, so like your closet's gonna be like look like this, and you're gonna have the most like unique clothes." And like she was trying to like I guess create some kind of how do you say like just give me like power to like make your own decisions, like not fear to be different,
Yeah, yeah,
and I guess these kind of things. So maybe that's where that came from too.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
100%. And off of that, like, you were like my only friend that I've had. I talked to you about this before, like where your parents got divorced during that time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How like it wasn't in high school, it was in middle school, right? It was like right after I met you, actually.
It was yeah, I think it was around grade 10 ish. Grade
Yeah.
9, grade 10, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. So it was like it was going on high
Yeah,
school,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
first
It
year.
actually, yeah, it happened before grade 10 started.
Yeah. And the
That's when
reason
that
why I
was.
bring it up is like that's actually a pretty deep and touchy subject because over here, like one of the best episodes that we've had to do with family,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because I mean we all have families, right? Like we're not born out of thin air, right? So it's a difficult dynamic, especially when your parents are separated. But like how like, I don't know if you've never asked me, but like I had my view of you, not of your parents, of you, like how kind of that changed you for the good or the bad. But in your eyes, how did you see any changes? Like, how did it affect you? Like,
Oh,
did
I
you
think,
notice it or?
yeah, for sure. I think as a kid, especially again in your teenage years, when something like that happens, you go so many different ways with it, right? Like there's parts of you that like wants to play the victim game, or like parts of you that wants to be angry, parts of you that wants to um, like like defeat it or
Yeah,
conquer it, or all these kind of things. So I think, huh. I don't remember exactly how I must have been, but I think after that happened, what basically ended up happening was because my dad was working all the time, um, I was just kind of freestyling.
yeah,
Like, and that's the kind of like vibe that I got from my dad too, was just like go out and have a good time. And so those years were really just about going out and having a great time
yeah,
with friends, with parties, with,
yeah.
everything that comes with those years. And so I think that's how most of it I think went for those years, until you hit a certain point and I think you start to see the world differently. Um, but yeah, initially I think for sure I probably would have the first few years I probably was like angry, or you know all the different kind of emotions for sure.
And that's the thing. Like, even though we were like good friends and tight, like I never saw that from you. Like,
Yeah.
now saw that. Like I might have noticed it, but you never told me. Like you never told anybody, by the way.
Mm.
Like maybe somebody else. But I'm saying like you were never like vocal about it. You never showed it
Yeah.
any kind of aggression or anger or anything. You know, you didn't victimize yourself. You were, it's what you described. That you were just like a free bird, like just
Yeah.
living life. You
Yeah.
know,
Definitely.
doing you.
Yeah. Definitely. I think the one thing that ended up happening, and it was advice from someone, is just that it is what it is, and you just got to accept and move on. And I think even as a teenager, luckily, those kind of messages stuck. So I think that was definitely helpful to whoever
How
told
like
me that.
the absence of one parent, like did you feel it at times?
Um, for sure. I think, well, especially in those beginning months or first few years, you kind of like play this angry kind of vibe towards your own world and,
Yeah.
towards the way that you are seeing your own story unfold. Um, but I think even after a year or so, feeling that absence, I had many, many moments where I was like, okay, this has happened, and adults are adults, and they probably have uh, their own stories for whatever went
Yeah.
on and whatever happened. And so I think I remember from that age trying to be conscious of not losing the relationship with my mom too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no. Was it like difficult to maintain that? Like, cause she moved, right? She moved.
Yeah, she did move. She moved for
Yeah,
work, but I think luckily we kind of
yeah,
kept it pretty healthy. There was obviously lots of up and
yeah,
downs, and you try to reconnect and things like that. But yeah, luckily we did. We
yeah,
kept it. Yeah, because I did have a very strong connection with my mom just growing up.
yeah, yeah. I
It was
noticed
just
it.
always me and her alone. So yeah, we kept it pretty good.
Yeah, no, and obviously, like we talked about, is like we always have problems with our parents and stuff. But like, I love your dad, man. He's one of the best
Yeah,
guys I know. Like
yeah,
he's
he's
an
good.
amazing man, and kudos for him, right? Like for taking the responsibility and raising you, right? Like
Yeah.
it's been a crazy ride to see that and to see how you've come out on the other side. But like my main question here is, did you feel that absence when you were dealing with your crazy exes? I'm joking.
Oh.
Oh, you like that transition?
Yeah, yeah.
No, no. But
Smooth
before,
operator.
but before we start, like, I don't want to fall into that. Like, I feel like that when we were younger, it's I was like, oh, my crazy ex. But as I've grown older, I realized that sometimes there were things that we made them go crazy, or maybe it was us. But there are crazy people out there, and I think me and you experienced that at least once. Maybe not all of your exes or your anybody you went out with, but I know you have a story too that we kind of witnessed. And that's another thing too. Similar to my co-host Sachin, like with him it's like recently, but with you, if it almost feels like we kind of go through the same stuff at the same time, which is weird. You know, like we dated this like a girl for almost the same years right together. You broke up with yours basically when I did.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, right? And it's so interesting because you were dealing with.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
was I. Like it's nuts, right? So how did you feel in the absence for that, or how was your so to start off? It's your first. That was your first relationship, right? The craziest one,
Yeah.
right? That was your first one,
Yeah.
and yeah, same with me. And I
Yeah.
think it makes sense because we're young. You know, it's our first relationship. You don't really know how to gauge the craziness
Yeah.
of
You have
someone.
no database there.
No data
There's
to
no previous
Yeah,
yeah.
and I don't want to sound like that, but like I think me and you have enough evidence. So let's talk about you. Like I think you have enough evidence to really classify this person, right, as a certain level. Maybe not of crazy, but just like of intense, you know? So how was that, man? I know you went through a lot with that.
Yeah, yeah. I think thinking back, like those first relationships that we had,
Yeah.
they were so similar in many ways. Um but different too at the same time. Um I think though, looking at the parent thing and for example, my parents being divorced, yours being together, and the way that those things went, I think potentially, I could be wrong, but I think that that has to do with it being your first relationship. And I think as kids, when it is your first one or second one, or when your brain just hasn't developed, you want to be in a movie. So
Mm.
you almost like want to push those boundaries and see where it goes.
That's a good way of putting it.
And it's like your own little science experiment, right?
Yeah.
And you want to kind of see, okay, what if I do this and say this? What will this person act with me like? Because it's your first ever serious
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
So you kind of think like you're in an MTV movie show or whatever. And that's, I think, how that went down. Is that potentially when you're, because we also heard it from some of our other buddies too,
Yeah.
that were going through some of the same similar things. And they were like finding themselves in the same boat. And we all were like, man, I know, it just happened to me. Maybe some of those things, the other crazier stuff that,
Yeah.
that happened, I think the crazier, unstable or, scary moments where potential like legal stuff could get involved and whatnot, and you're just a kid and you're innocent and you have no idea what the
Yeah.
hell is happening. That could be just down to the other person.
It's true.
And again, they're a kid too at that age.
Yeah.
So those girls, they would have been like 17, 16,
Exactly.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So again,
Kids, basically. We
again,
were
yeah,
kids.
and then potentially their connections back to their family stories, back to their own database of whatever they have.
Yeah.
So it comes down to each decision, I think, that
Yeah.
you choose to make almost in a movie style when you're in those years, early years, I think.
Did you feel like you probably have your own opinion of me, but like I didn't see you change, right? But did you see a change in me? Like, because I noticed one change in me that I always bring up, and I'm always gonna like get advice, even to our videographer Antonio over here. He's a young kid. He's manly, like he wants to be manly in love.
Antonio.
Antonio, shout out to Antonio, Luna Photography. Yeah, no, but like stuff like even my little brother growing up, I always tell him like
Exposed.
no, I always tell him that like for me, when you met me, you know me, I'm shy, I'm quiet, I'm not problematic, I'm not confrontational.
Yeah.
So for me in this relationship, like she was very jealous, right? And she was always pushing it, like jealousy. Like I can't even talk to my cousins at the time, It was like ridiculous. So I felt like I was kind of like staying behind and being a sucker. So I had to be jealous as well to kind of make it fair. And I became this toxic, like jealous guy.
Wow.
And it changed me, like, because it became real, right? Like I would see her like just look like maybe in the direction of a dude. I'd be like, you looked at him. And I hate people like that. But I became that guy.
Wow.
But I became, and I don't want to blame her, but that's the thing. The evidence that I have to back up my claim is you knew me from before. My mom, she came up to me and she's like, Oscar, like you were never, even like growing up, sometimes you can tell there's little kids that like they're jealous of their mom. They don't want people to touch their toys.
Yeah.
I've never been like that. My mom was like Oscar, you always shared your toys. You were never jealous, whatever. Why are you acting like this? Right? And it's something that like after we broke up, I vowed to never, like obviously there's still jealousy. There's always going to be jealousy. But like I'm talking about toxic jealousy, where it's like, you talking to that guy? Like, like just beef, right? And that's something I vowed. I saw an ugly side of myself from those ages that I never vowed to never go back to that.
Yeah.
Right? Did you change somehow? I became very angry as well too, right? So
Yeah.
you got these changes in you.
Isn't that interesting how you can kind of like see that in yourself and then realize it and then
Yeah.
be like, okay, never that again, or
Yeah.
because that guy that you just described, I kept saying wow because I didn't even know that. Like I didn't. Maybe you told me and then maybe I forgot.
Yeah.
But I forgot because I know you as someone else,
Yeah.
right? Like you are very pretty much the other things
Yeah.
you were describing before
Yeah.
that, like calm, chill, nice, like very warm, never the crazy psycho.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
Maybe that's one of those things where it's like if you're hanging out with the one person who's just this way, you kind of start to mirror that back to them.
Yeah.
Maybe that kind of ties back into.
And that's what I don't want to sound like I'm blaming or putting like tossing the blame aside, but it's true. Like I'm not like that, but I felt like I was like falling behind.
Yeah.
Can you imagine somebody's like controlling you and you're just like, yeah. And since I'm not like a pushover, I'd be like, okay, like I have to kind of push back too
Mm-hmm.
in order to make it fair. But that's toxic. Like it's not a good relationship,
Yeah.
right? To be doing stuff like that. Like, but did you notice any changes in yourself like that? Not necessarily that, but
In myself?
yeah, with your first relationship.
Oh, tough. It was so long ago. I can't even.
It is long gone, like
Yeah, we were
over
like
10 years.
16, 17 years old.
Jeez, we're old, yeah.
Um, I think. I think over. I'm just drawing from a general. Different situations. I think I have seen different versions or unhealthy versions of myself in relationships. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe I can't remember back to that one, but I can think of other ones where I saw sides of myself where I was like, "Ooh, this is like crazy. Like that's not the true me."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where it's like how you are, where your values are, how you kind of expect yourself to be. And then when you kind of go against that because maybe you're drawn into it or you feel like you got to stand up for yourself or
Yeah.
things like that, then you start to see it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think
Yeah.
that's like it shows growth, you know? It shows growth. It's like what you said, right? Like, to be conscious of it, it's like you're piloting the plane, but like you see the plane and you're in the cockpit, but you're not controlling it. That's how
Yeah.
I felt
Yeah.
at times, right? Especially with I don't want to get into it now, but like the I did get like a then don't start asking me like comments or anything. Like I did get like for 3 years for something like what you said I didn't do, you know, like, and I do want to tell a story, but like maybe another time. It's just like it affects. I was a kid, you know, like
Yeah.
I was a kid that again non-violent, non this, but it's just the choices that we make, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes unfair, maybe a little bit warranted, but like at the end of the day, we were 16, 17, you know,
Yeah.
like that's not something that like me. It's not something that like for something that that I'm not, you know?
Yeah.
Like if I'm a douchebag, like if I'm this guy, like I probably still feel like a victim, but like I would know that I deserve it. But like to be back there, you know?
Knowing 100% that you were innocent and you hadn't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Zero. I
It's
remember
nuts.
when those things were happening, I was so angry like for you. I was like, okay, hold on. Out of everybody that I know, literally it's gonna happen to Oscar. Like how does that even work? I was so angry at that
And you know,
at
can I
that
tell you
chick.
something? You know what's interesting that I don't know if you think I'm dumb for this, but so when that was happening, I had a chance to leave. Like somebody heard like like a Latino guy, and like they called the cops or whatever. The security came out and he told me, he's like, listen, if you don't leave, they're gonna. And I never told you this. I don't know if I told you this, but like, and maybe I'm dumb for this, but I sat on the floor and I started crying. I'm like, no, like I deserve this. Like I deserve it because I I know that I'm not supposed to be with this person, and I've seen all the signs, and I'm still with this person, so I deserve whatever punishment. I'm pretty sure that even if I would have left, they would have found me. But like I wanted to suffer because I felt like my stupid decision of staying in that I deserve to
Wow.
get punished, right?
Wow.
But honestly, like I said, like I I could have left, but I did wanna. It's myself to kind of own up to what I was doing. I needed to like pay the price, right? Either way, like I did feel like it worked out for my favor because when the cops came, um, my girlfriend at the time, she was actually like being aggressive with the cops. I was there, and she was like pushing the cops or whatever. So they saw this guy. I wasn't victim. I wasn't there like pretending to be a victim. I was quiet. I was sad because of what had happened. We're witnessing this crazy girl just like trying to push them and whatever. And I think she got actually. I wasn't there. Like I left and my sister told me because she was there that did. So like all that went in my favor, right? Because it's like what you said. I'm not this like I think we all have moments of aggression. Everybody does, right? We all have a beast inside of us. But like for me, for that to come out or for me to be like that, it's unknown. Like I never
Mhm.
even knew how to like myself to get angry at a level where it could look wrong or anything, you know? And it changes you, man. Like for 3 years, you know, I had to live with that. And realistically, if they look at my file, maybe I shouldn't be saying that, but like it's clean, right? Like it wasn't like an actual charge or anything, but they did take me to the. But it's so crazy to know that I don't consider myself fully innocent, right? Because I think if I was fully innocent, I wouldn't have been in that situation. But you learn from all that, you know, and
Yeah.
that's why I be like those toxic things. I learned to get good at reading those violent, toxic relationships early in my life.
Yeah.
Because I know people in our age that are in that,
Yeah.
or like even older
Yeah.
that are in violent relationships. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I learned how to deal with that when I
Yeah.
was like 18, 19.
Yeah. And I remember us actually talking to each other maybe years after that, like later on in our 20s, and being like, okay, thankfully we had the craziest shit happen to us like right from the get-go. So it was
Yeah.
like our first ones were that nuts. Where, we experienced the movie first attempt.
Yeah.
So then from then on, I believe you start to see those patterns differently in other people. You're a lot more aware of it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
You could see the signs, right? And
Yeah.
that's why, like in the subsequent relationships, I could see that. Like I always had that. That was my non-negotiable, which is like you can be jealous. I think cute jealous is fun. You know, I think we both like that,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
cute jealous,
Cute Spanish
yeah.
jealous.
Not the burn your house down Spanish
Yeah.
jealous, but like I don't know. No, but that cute. I was always aware and conscious of never ever letting that happen again. You know what I'm saying? Because for me and you, like we learn a lesson once and we move on. Like we're not trying to go back for more, right?
Yeah.
So that's crazy, man. Because I know you didn't get it. Like
No, I had a scare. Um and yeah, I had a scare where I was at the movies watching the newest I think it was a Terminator movie that I was really excited for.
yeah.
And we got out of it. I got a blocked call on my cell phone. And at that time, I was getting a lot of blocked calls from different people that I knew that just had their thing hidden. And I picked up the one time coming out of the movie theater, and it's some guy claiming to be. And I'm like, okay, what are you saying? And they told me that, where were you the past few hours? I'm like, I'm at the movies. And they're like, apparently your girlfriend, her parents have called the cops and told us that you went to their house and turned on the gas and then left and drove away in your like Navy car. And I'm like, okay, I don't have a car. It's my dad's car that I'm driving, and it's black. And so first off, that
Yeah.
description's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm at the movies, and I was like, okay, how do I know that this is actually you're calling me off a block number?
Yeah.
And so the guy gave me his badge number. I called back and gave them the number, and it was right. It was actually
Oh, is that?
yeah.
Oh.
I thought in my head, because at that time, like her family was very against us dating
yeah.
because of cultural
Yeah.
reasons, and me being an idiot, I should have just respected that and kind of walked
Yeah.
away. But you're a kid at that age, and you want to kind of push those boundaries.
Yeah,
you want to
yeah.
see in that movie like what character you can be.
yeah.
And so I called them back. I'm like, yeah, and then they're like, yeah, there's gonna be an ongoing investigation now. Like, we got to look into this.
Yeah.
And I was just shitting myself. I was like, holy shit, I've done nothing wrong, and this is now happening. And so luckily at that time, like, the girl, she was on board with me. Like, she had told me about these things, and I didn't believe that her parents would actually go through
Be
all
capable
this
of that.
to do these to separate us. And then we actually we met up to my building. I gave them they had my address, and we went and sat in their car in the back seat of and gave a full taped interview. And so
No
she was on
way.
my side. Luckily, like, we were good,
Yeah.
and she was living with me at that point, and she was kind of helping me out there. She's being like, yeah, my parents are crazy. They're like, so they would do this.
Oh,
And
wow.
we're like happy together. We're whatever. Like, we're yeah. He definitely didn't do this.
Yeah.
And then it was good after that. But that was like the biggest scare, like having to go and
Like an open.
sit in or at when I'm like 17 years old and talking to a tape recorder thing, and say that no, I was at the movies watching the frickin' Terminator with my boys, having a great time. Next thing I know, you guys are calling me up.
Damn, man.
Yeah,
It's so like those things like there's so many debates about that like oh yeah because for me it's like yo you should have seen the signs and stuff but like our fallback is like we're young, you know, and that's not an excuse, that's like that's an actual reason, like we're dumb. You know, we're boys, we're like 16
great
17
play
boys.
though, eh? Like
Yeah.
great move by the parents though, because they're just trying to
That's
scare the kid away, and it
yeah.
worked.
But like what triggers me or what I question is that the kid can't be that different. Like if you grow up like that, you can't like physically be that different from your parents, right? Or you have to have some kind of trauma, even if you're not like them, but have some kind of trauma to that because that's intense having parents like that
Yeah,
that will make up lies and stuff.
yeah, for sure.
Especially like if you were like an adult man trying to like rob their daughter, fine, like it still makes sense to me, you know. But just a bunch of kids and stuff.
Yeah.
But what like those traumas like? Do you feel like it affected your subsequent relationships, or could you like detach that experience from a new one? You know what I'm
No,
saying?
no. I think those kind of
They stayed behind.
relationships, they, as long as you kind of debrief and you kind of see what happened,
Mm.
I think they're only good for your experience, right?
Right.
I'm sure, like you were kind of talking about that earlier, right? Where you were like, okay, these are
You
things I
mentioned
saw.
something like maybe from that point of view, yeah, like from that. But you mentioned something like sometimes we get into like a loop. I think you didn't get into a loop, but like people get into kind of loops. It's like what you said. It's perfectly said. Like I shouldn't think about that. Like what you said about like we want to be like a movie, especially me being Latino. Like I'm a little dramatic, you
Yeah,
know, like a novela.
Latinos are, yeah,
Yeah, so like sometimes we want to be like, especially guys too. You want to be like a kind of like a hero, like try to prove that you're a man and you can handle
exactly.
this, you know.
Yeah,
But that's like the loop that, especially at our age, like, we gotta get out of, you know. And I think we've gotten out of it. But sometimes it's important to remember these things, which is why I bring it up here, right? Because this is not as much as we kept saying like, oh, we were 16, we were 17. There's people that are like 50 and are doing this, you know. Like this isn't just is what you said. We were lucky, fortunate enough to have gone through this early, you know. But there's people that are going through this right now in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, and that's like intense because everything is augmented, you know. The fights are bigger, like the charges could be bigger, you know,
yeah,
and that's traumatizing,
yeah,
right? But all this like it allowed me to see our friendship for what it was, right? Like weren't always together, and I want to leave on that note. Like for those who like I don't want to say lost their friends, but obviously like after high school, there's a time where you separate or whatever. Like me and you, we haven't. There's been times like maybe like a year, 2 years that we just say hi once or twice, but then like we'll chill for like a year. In that year, we'll chill a couple of times, you know. And it's like old times, and those are the kind of friendships that to me they mean a lot. Because I
yeah,
don't think friendships have to be necessarily like always like talking, always living together because you can get bored of each other. You know, I don't think me and you have ever had any problems. Like me and you, you're the only friend that like we've never beefed or anything, and it's been amazing. You know, I've known you for
yeah.
like 16. I don't even know how many years now.
Yeah, it's
Decades.
interesting how like when you were talking about that, I thought about like that connection. It's like it's stayed the same level throughout the years, regardless, even if we haven't talked for 6 months, like 8 months, a year, 2 years, whatever. It stays strong. Like that's so interesting to me.
Yeah, because growing up, I started to learn what love meant, right? And love isn't just like a feeling, right? It's like being able to like even if we did beef, let's say, right, to be able to forgive and then move. Like that's what love is, right? And I love you like a brother, and that's why it's always been like whether I see you for a year, I don't see you.
Yeah,
It's the same thing to me. Like I remember so many things about you. Like I've always told you things that you've never even know that you helped me in my life. Like little tidbits that you said, and it's like bro, my best memory of you was we were playing soccer and I started to get a cramp. And yeah, and like we just came from soccer. I was sweating and you didn't care. You literally like went on your knees and like you grabbed my foot and you like helped me out. Like you didn't hesitate or nothing. And
oh,
to
for
me,
real?
yeah,
Oh,
man.
didn't even
Like,
remember that.
yeah, man. Like, those are the memories I have of you and like of those feelings of like brotherhood, right?
Yeah,
That like you don't really maybe it's for me because I've always been kind of like a loner. because I've always been mostly with my family and stuff, doing stuff, and I used to move around a lot when I was young, so I never had that experience, right? That maybe a lot of people do, right? Me and my cousins, we kind of grew apart too, so I did kind of grow up alone, which is why I would get into this relationship. So I blame you for all my bad relationships. Yeah, no, but I want to thank you for being on, man. I appreciate it.
No, brother, thank you.
There's so many things I
And
want to say, but time got us. But thank you for coming on, and I
thank you,
appreciate
bro. I appreciate it. Means a
Alright.
lot.
Oh, no worries. So I will catch you guys on the next one from the Out of Chaos podcast.